Welcome back to CrimeLense Stories. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a true story that might stay with you long after this video ends. A story about a man who seemed ordinary, just another quiet neighbor, a businessman, a husband, a father. But behind his polite smile, behind the walls of his beautiful home, something terrifying was growing. Something no one expected. Something no one was prepared for. This is not a fantasy. This is not exaggerated. This is real. And the deeper you go into it, the more you realize how darkness can live right next to us, without us ever knowing. So sit back, turn down the lights, and listen carefully. Because tonight, I'm going to take you inside a place where silence was deadly, and where the truth was buried, literally, beneath the ground. Our story begins in Indiana, during the early 1990s. A peaceful state, quiet neighborhoods, families living simple lives, and a growing business named Save-A-Lot Thrift Stores. A charity-based store run by a man named Herb Baumeister. To the world, Herb was just a strange but harmless person, socially awkward, a little stiff, but family-oriented. His wife, Julie, and their children lived with him in a large property called Fox Hollow Farm. A huge house. Acres of land. A private indoor pool. A dream home for many. But no one knew that this home would become one of the most disturbing crime scenes in American history. During the same period, young men across Indiana began disappearing. Some were last seen near bars, some along highways, and some simply vanished from their normal routines. Their missing posters started appearing everywhere, but police had no solid lead. Eventually, bodies started turning up, usually miles away from where the men were last seen. Most of them showed signs of strangulation. This pattern kept repeating, and slowly, investigators started to suspect a serial killer. The media gave him a name. The I-70 Strangler. But no one knew who he was, how he operated, or where he lived. His identity was like smoke, always there, but impossible to hold. Around this time, a man named Tony Harris, a local resident, found himself in a situation that would change the entire investigation. Tony had gone out one night, met an older man who introduced himself as Brian Smart, and ended up inside a huge, expensive home with an indoor pool. Tony felt something was off. Very off. The man seemed calm, too calm. He talked strangely, acted strangely, and suddenly suggested something that made Tony's blood run cold. Tony realized, he was alone in a house with someone who might not let him leave alive. Somehow, Tony managed to survive that night. But when he escaped, he was shaking, terrified, but he knew one thing. He had just been face to face with a predator. He went to the police. He explained every detail: the house, the pool, the man's behavior, the driveway, the trees, the location he remembered from the car ride. But the police were overwhelmed with dozens of missing person cases. They listened, they noted everything, but nothing happened. 1 year passed. The killer continued living freely. The victims kept disappearing. And Tony Harris didn't give up. He kept searching, kept driving around different neighborhoods, trying to find the house he had escaped from. Then one day, he saw it. The same driveway. The same huge property. The same structure. He immediately contacted the police. The name of the owner? Herb Baumeister. Detectives dug into Herb's background. A strange childhood. Odd behavior. Mental health concerns. Years of social isolation. A failing marriage. Financial issues. And then the biggest red flag. Fox Hollow Farm had a large wooded area. A massive backyard. Countless places that could hide things no one was meant to find. Detectives tried to approach Herb politely at first. They asked to search his property. Herb refused. Again. And again. That refusal spoke louder than any confession. Meanwhile, his wife Julie had been noticing strange things on the property. Skeleton fragments. Small bones. Things Herb brushed off as animal remains. But Julie wasn't so sure anymore. One day, when Herb was away, she finally went to the police. She agreed to give them access to the property. Authorities walked onto Fox Hollow Farm. And what they found was beyond anything they had ever expected. The ground felt wrong. Soft in places. Disturbed in others. One of the officers bent down. He picked up a fragment. Not an animal bone. Not dirt. Not debris. A human bone. Then another. And another. Hundreds of fragments. Scattered. Burned. Crushed. Buried shallow like trash. A quiet farm in Indiana was sitting on a graveyard. But this discovery was just the beginning. The more they searched, the more the forest around them started revealing the truth. And yet, the man responsible for all of it was nowhere to be found. The investigation at Fox Hollow Farm had only just begun, but every minute brought something darker to the surface. Officers slowly moved through the woods, the soft soil crunching under their boots, a sound mixed with the faint crack of bone fragments scattered across the ground. One of the detectives knelt down again, brushing his fingers through the dirt. More pieces. More remains. Some burned black, others pale white, all shattered into fragments that once belonged to human lives. The silence of the forest felt heavier now. It wasn't just quiet, it was grieving. Julie, the woman who had lived on this land for years, stood at a distance, holding her breath. Every new discovery confirmed her worst fear. That the man she had shared a home, a bed, and children with wasn't the person she thought he was. As forensic teams spread out, they found remains not in one place, but in multiple different sections of the property. Small piles. Deep patches. Burned clusters. And something even more disturbing. Some bones showed signs of being dug up, and moved, as if someone had tried to reorganize the dead. Investigators realized this wasn't a crime scene created in one moment of rage. This was a pattern. A ritual. A cycle that repeated again and again. Dozens of bags were filled with bone fragments. Shards of ribs, pelvises, vertebrae, jaw lines. Human teeth. All mixed together, making identification almost impossible. Hours passed. More officers arrived. What started as one discovery turned into a full-scale excavation. Inside the house, the atmosphere was even worse. Detectives stepped into the indoor pool area, the same place Tony Harris had described. The same place where he felt his life slipping away. And immediately, they sensed it. The air felt wrong. Stale. Dark. Like the walls themselves held memories. Investigators walked around the pool, imagining the monster who once stood here, calm, confident, feeding on the fear of helpless victims. Then they moved toward Herb's private office. A small, clutter-free room. Too clean. Too organized. On a shelf were old magazines, business receipts, random manuals, but nothing personal, nothing emotional, just emptiness. One detective quietly said, "There's no soul in this room." Meanwhile, news about the discovery started leaking to the public. Neighbors were shocked. People who had waved at Herb from across the street were now replaying every memory of him, asking themselves, "How did we not see this? How close was I to danger? Could he have picked me too?" But the man at the center of all of this, Herb, was still missing. He had driven away from Indiana without telling anyone. Not his wife. Not his business partners. Not even his children. Investigators issued alerts across multiple states. They checked his credit cards, his phone, his bank records. Nothing. It was as if he knew exactly how to disappear. Days passed without a clue. The searches at Fox Hollow Farm continued, uncovering more remains. More signs of torture. More evidence tying everything back to Herb. Finally, in early July 1996, a breakthrough came. Herb's abandoned car was found near a small park in Ontario, Canada. It was the first sign of him in days. Police rushed to the area, scanning the woods, calling his name, searching every trail. But the forest stayed silent. Then, deep inside the trees, under the shade of a fallen log, they found him. Herb Baumeister lay motionless on the ground. Beside him, a handgun. And a note, calm, emotionless, blaming stress, blaming business failures, blaming everything except the lives he stole. He never admitted anything. Not a single word. Not a single apology. Nothing. It was the final act of a coward. With Herb dead, investigators turned all their focus back to Fox Hollow Farm. By this time, forensic teams had collected more than 5,000 bone fragments. Enough remains to represent at least 11 human beings. But there was a terrifying possibility. This number could be higher. Much higher. Because the bones were so damaged, so scattered, so destroyed, that many could never be identified. The case connected almost perfectly with the timeline of the I-70 Strangler. The victims matched. The methods matched. The locations matched. But because Herb died before trial, the case would forever stay technically unresolved. Even today, Fox Hollow Farm still stands. Some owners reported strange sights, eerie voices, footsteps in the hallways, shadows near the pool. As if the souls of those who died there were still trying to speak. People say the air feels heavy on that property. Animals refuse to go near certain spots. Visitors feel watched. Some even say they hear whispers, calling for help, still trapped between the trees. The truth is, this story never really ends. Because when a place absorbs that much pain, that much fear, that much silence, it leaves something behind. And somewhere in Indiana, the woods around Fox Hollow Farm still hold the memories of the nights that were never meant to be seen. And the cries that were never meant to be heard.